the second-order social dilemma. Thus, only institutional punishment can maintain the cooperation in the one-shot game. However, studies from the experiment show that both institutional and peer punishment can promote cooperation. However, punishment often decreases the total welfare. Literatures about the public goods game with reward shows that from the theory, both peer and institutional reward are relatively inefficient in promoting the cooperation. And other studies show that reward is good at sustaining the social welfare. However, studies from the experiment show that the effectiveness of rewards is controversial, given the budget balanced condition, which means the cost to reward ratio is 1:1, means you need to pay 1 unit to reward another person, and another person will also get 1 unit. Then both institutional and peer reward cannot revert the decay trend. Young's study in 2018 showed that the endogenous rewards can successfully reverse the decay trend and achieve a high level of contribution and the social welfare with a budget balanced rewards. Their studies show that an endogenous reward mechanism with 20% tax rate is proposed, where each player can freely distribute his or her share of the tax revenue to other members of the community, and the significant rising trend of the cooperation in the rewards conditions is observed, and converging to the significant higher level of cooperation and social welfare compared to the controls. So the questions are, can the incentive emerge spontaneously? Because the 20 tax rate is set by the experimenters. The second question is, which tax level do the subjects prefer? So in order to study these two questions, we did the following experiment. First, about the general design. There are 96 subjects in total in our experiments, and there are 16 subjects in each community. So we have 6 communities in total, and there are 4 subjects in each group. So there are 4 groups in each 16 subjects community. Players need to play game 1 and the following game 2. So the game 1 is subjects should first play 10 rounds of the standard public goods game. There are 4 players in each group, and they have 20 monetary units in each round, then multiplied by 1.6 for their contribution. Then following, they will play the game 2. They play 6 iterations of the 5 rounds public goods game with the institutional incentive. And we can take the institutional incentive as the reward. They need to choose the tax rate before each iteration. When they choose the tax rate, subjects should submit the tax rate they preferred. And for each 16 subject community, we rank the choosing tax rate from high to low, and subsequently form a 4 subject public goods game from high to low. And at last, the actual tax rate alpha of a group is determined by the lowest tax rate in each group. Then after the tax rate choosing, they will play a 5 rounds public goods game with the institutional incentive. And in each round, there are 2 stages. Stage 1 is the standard public goods game, just like the game 1. Then there is a tax rate levied alpha on the public goods game income. The stage 2, we can state it as a reward distribution. Each player has 13 votes and can assign them among the other 3 group members or abstain some votes. We can see this abstain behavior as some behavior of punishment. So if they are not satisfied with the other 3 persons' contribution, they can choose to abstain their votes. So this is a big difference from Young's paper in 2018. And the value of each vote is 1/120 of the total tax rate, because there are 4 people in each group. So each value is 1/120. So this is a general design. This is the implementation of our experiment. The experiments were conducted on July 9th and 10th, 2009 at Beijing Normal University. And the subjects were freshmen and recruited from Beijing Normal University without taking classes of game theory. And the experiments are anonymous and there is no communication, and our web page are based on the PHP and MyCircle, and this is the lab environment. So let's move to some details about our experiment. First, there is no time limit for the decision, and the duration of 2 games is about 70 minutes. The payoff are 13 RMB show fee plus their total scores in the game 1 and game 2. They multiplied 0.06, and the average income of each person is about 19 RMB. There are also information feedback, such as contributions and payoffs in public booth game with a reward. But there is no ID tracking. They can also see the voting results, but they can only see the total votes they received. There is no counter reward, which is mean that they cannot see, they cannot reward the person who reward him or herself. They can also see the tax rates, average contributions, and average payoffs in the 4 subject public goods game, and subjects can learn from the others. So this is the short screen of our experiment. This is the game 1 standard public goods game. This is the Chinese version. At this stage, they can choose how to contribute from 0 to 20, and they can see the history information. This is the tax rate choosing. They can choose their preferred tax rate. They can click here and they can choose the tax rate from 1% to 99%. So this is the short screen of the reward distribution. They can choose to vote for the other 3 group members, N1, N2, and N4, and they can also choose to abstain their votes. And N1 means the one who contribute most in the 4-person group, and the N2 means the second, N3 means the third, and so on. And they can also see the history information. So this is our primary results. First, the contribution. This is the average contribution along with the rounds, along with the 10 rounds in game 1, the standard public goods game. And we can see that the average contributions decrease over rounds in all groups. And we can also see the end game effect is also observed in the last round of each group. This is the sixth community group. Okay, let's move the contribution of the game 2. this is average contribution along with the 13 rounds, because there are 5 rounds in each iteration, and there are 6 iterations in total. So there are 13 rounds in total. We can see that in game 2, with the reward mechanism, the average contributions increase over rounds in all groups. We can also see the end game effect in each in the last round of each iteration. We can see this. Okay. Next is the contribution, average contribution along with each iterations in the game 2. And we can also see that the average contribution increase in all groups, in all 6 groups. We can see the voting pattern. This is the voting behavior along with the 13 rounds. We can see that the more you contribute and the more votes you will get. And we can see on average, N1 means who contribute most can receive about 11 votes, and N2 means the one who contribute the second in the 4-person group can receive 7 votes, N3 receives 4 votes, and there are average 8 votes are abstained in the group. And we can also see the end game effect can lead to more abstained votes. We can see that the black lines means the abstained votes. Let's move to the voting pattern. This is the average tax rate along with the iterations. We can also see this votes to N1 and NA. NA means the abstained votes. They are decreased over times. This is the tax rate along with the 6 iterations. We can see that the tax rates increase in all 6 groups. This is the tax rate versus the cooperation and payoff. We can see from this picture that for tax rate lower than 40%, a higher tax rate leads to the higher average contribution and payoff. For tax rate larger than 14%, for contribution and the maximum payoff can be achieved. There are 144 dots here. The dots mean the average tax rate of the 4 people group. So we can see here the tax rate. When the tax rate is higher, the contribution is higher and the payoff is higher. This is the tax rate versus the abstained votes. We can also see that a higher tax rate can also lead to less abstained votes. We can explain this because the subjects have no reason to abstain in the case of full contribution. So the discussions are, most subjects are prefer to a higher tax rate. Under what tax rate the full contribution and the maximum payoff can be achieved? And how do subjects distribute their votes? This is the Nash equilibrium analysis. We can see that in the standard public goods game, there is a unique Nash equilibrium, that is the free rider strategy. However, Young's studies in 2018 show that in the public goods game with institutional incentive, Nash equilibrium depends crucially on the incentive formation, and the expected payoff of player I in our experiment is this equality. We can see this part is the payoff from the public goods game. This 1 minus alpha. Alpha means the revenue levied on the group. So this is the left payoff plus the rewards. This is the rewards from the votes. X bar is the average contribution of the group, and R means the total incentives. And JI is the total votes for player I, means the one gets the votes from the other 3 group members. So for all possible reward functions, the for X star equal to 20 means contribute all of his endowments is a Nash equilibrium only if this inequality holds, which implies the alpha, which means the tax rate should larger than 27%. So we can conclude that the full contribution is the Nash equilibrium only if the tax rate alpha is larger than 27%. So the conclusion is that first about the promoting cooperation, the institutional incentive, which means our vote reward mechanism, can effectively promote the cooperation and the social welfare without using external funding. And the institutional incentive can emerge spontaneously because the tax rates are chosen by the group members themselves. So we can see it as a endogenous incentive mechanism. Second, about the endogenous social norm, incentive is positively correlated to the contribution because the voting behavior shows that you contribute more, then you will get more rewards or votes from other group members. And we can also see the self-sorting effect in our experiments, where cooperator subjects are more likely to choose a high tax rate. A high tax rate means a higher contribution and a higher social welfare. So our further studies will be how do subjects determine their tax rates and why some subjects abstain their votes. I think when they abstain their votes, they mean they want to punish their group members. And we also study the we will also study the psychological effect in the decision making. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Any question? Okay, let's move to the last speaker. Sorry, last speaker is Li Tao from Nanjing University of Science and Technology. I want to say that I will leave for another conference at 9 o'clock, and the last speaker will give her talk ends at 15 minutes past 9. Okay, let's begin.
I'm from the School of Economics and Management, Nanjing University of Science and Technology. It was completed in cooperation with Cai Congcong, a postgraduate student. She will introduce the empiric work of the paper later. We are concerned about the efficiency of the use of residential maintenance funds. Regarding this issue in the eyes of many researchers, especially the relevant government department, it is mainly a problem of low utilization rate. They believe that it is difficult for owners both to agree, which is one of the main reasons for the inefficient use of maintenance funds. We think this may be a misunderstanding, but we need evidence to prove. For well-known reasons, it is not easy for us to obtain confirmation. We checked administrative approval information to select samples and teaming. We have sorted out some evidence to form this paper and hope to share with more colleges and get support. Next, let me introduce research background. The Housing Special Maintenance Fund of China is a public common pool resource shared by house owners according to their share will which usage is jointly decided by the owners by law. It is estimated that the capital stock of the House Special Maintenance Fund reached on the trillion yuan in China. In the second, this is a picture. This is a finger obvious the topical follow of maintenance funds used. In the second process, when the maintenance plan is public, maintenance cost information will be proved to the owners. In the first process, the apportioned amount of the individual account will be publicized, but the balance information is observed. But the balance information of the individual account will not be published or notified to the owner in the whole process. The owners voting for how to use the House Special Maintenance Fund is difficult to pass the statutory requirement to third owners, mainly due to the owners not in my backyard attitude and the low utilization rate of the Housing Special Maintenance Fund. Hence, the voting threshold have been reduced from 2/3 owners to 1/3 owners in the relevant provisions of the new Code 0 in 2020. Identify the owner's maintenance fund demand within a attitude preference framework. By calming the relationship among attitude, views, preference, and choice, the irrelevant attitude through decision-making effect should be identified. The owner's attitude and the preference for using maintenance funds should be affected by whether the personal account is the reference point. The relationship between the endowment effect and the preference. This suggests that people should have the endowment effect for things they nominally own but not, such as individual accounts in public maintenance fund. Attitude and preference. There are two types of owners. Those property in the maintenance item refers to as IM have a self-related attitude. Those property not in the maintenance item has a none of my business attitude. H1, when maintenance funds are used, the decision utility of IM and NIM owners is significantly different. Measure value in terms of income effect and endowment effect. People should have the endowment effect for the individual share of public funds and that nominally private and actually shared, and it can be observed at the group level. According to Marshall's demand theorem, the reservation price of the maintenance project demand of the owner represents the maximum willingness to pay the maintenance funds, which represents the owner's value. Let's look at the table 1. In the table 1, the endowment effect of the first level of individual account is based on PS of the apportioned fund of individual account as the reference point, corresponding to 2 status quo buys. The first is spend everyone's money. The reference point is the amount needed for maintenance, PM, and the amount shared in personal account, PS. The endowment effect of the second level of individual account is to increase the fund balance of individual account, PA, as the reference point. When the balance of a personal account is not known, under the condition of first buys, the reservation price of the owner who needs maintenance is PM, and that of the owner who does not need maintenance is 0. In the case of status quo buys, too, the reservation price for owners needing maintenance is a positive number, while the reservation price for owners without maintenance is a negative number. As the point, the owner who was noting to do with himself use the maintenance fund to generate negative income and will object to the use of the maintenance fund, and so on. When the individual's account balance is not known, NIM generate a negative income by using maintenance fund. When the individual's account balance is known, all of IM and NIM will get benefits from the use of maintenance fund. If the personal account balance of maintenance fund has endowment effect, then the owner shall not refuse to participate in the voting of use maintenance fund. So we can get the H2 in the same decision scenario. The owner who knows the person account balance is more willing to participate in the maintenance fund decision than the owner who does not know the personal account balance. So that's all. Next, please, Cai Congcong. She will introduce the empiric work of the paper later.
So it's my turn to give a talk on experimental design. The experimental variables are derived from the previous theory. There are three variables corresponding to value, attitude, and decision utility respectively. Considering the maintenance of the outdoor and roof waterproof layer is most closely related to the owner's own interests, we chose 5 residential districts in Nanjing urban area that are using the maintenance funds to repair the outdoor and roof waterproof layer. The geographical distribution map of such is on the right. We designed the maintenance fund use satisfaction questionnaires. The questionnaires is mainly divided into 3 parts: basic personal information, cognition of maintenance project-related information, including public information and experimental variables, and decision-making utility level. The latter 2 parts are all audio variables on Likert 5 scale. We can see the community background. The average age of these communities is 13.6 years, and there are several approved records from January 1st, 2016 to June 30, 2018. We entered the 5 communities household questionnaire survey. 112 valid questionnaires were obtained, accounting for 45.7% of the voting owners. The upper limit represents the stock of public funds. In general, the stock of public funds of 5 groups is relatively sufficient compared with the approved projects. Now is the grouped sample.
Okay, sorry for interrupt. I will leave this conference because I have to attend another conference. You still have 15 minutes and the time is enough. Okay, you can go on.
Oh, okay, thank you. According to the mean value of the variables of the 5 sample plots, the highest voting intention of the owners is Musi plot, and the lowest is the Johnson plot. The group difference is obvious. Now we can go to see the empirical results. You can see the descriptive statistics of the sample. The knowledge level of maintenance fund account balance is relatively low and tend to be basically unknown. The understanding of the maintenance amount is not high. We can see the descriptive statistics of the sample. And our results of the experimental grouping. There were significant differences among the 3 groups in the variable of knowledge of the repair parts, indicating that the grouping is effective. Based on the in repair basis, 2 types of dot in my backyard were identified, not in maintenance and not sure whether in maintenance. And our hypothesis, one is proved. We can see significant differences among the 3 groups in the variables of knowledge of the repaired parts. And the endowment effect of individual account balance is also revealed. From the perspective of grouping, endowment effect significantly improves the decision-making utility of members in maintenance group. In other 2 groups, positive effects on decision utility were also observed, but not significant. However, the relationship between voting intention and decision-making effectiveness is not clear. So we go to the rigorous analysis. The influence of the degree of awareness of supply funds in personal accounts on satisfaction. There is a positive correlation between account balance and decision utility. Endowment effect improves decision-making effectiveness. The willingness to vote promotes the positive effect between the two, and our hypothesis C2 is partially proved. And we can see a positive correlation between account balance and decision utility, and our interaction is also significant. So we can give the summary. There are two types of residents taking a not in my backyard attitude. One type is aware of spending their own money to repair neighbors' houses. The other type does not care about the use of maintenance funds. It is the latter who are less likely to vote. The endowment effect of personal account improves the decision-making utility, but not reduces the voting willingness. However, increasing the willingness to vote helps to promote the positive effect of account balance on decision utility. We also gave a behavioral intervention. According to the principle of random field travel, we intervened in Zhongshan community. Below are pictures of behavioral interventions. On August 1, 2020, an elevator in building T5 of the community was damaged, and the accessories needed to be replaced. We observed the decision. It is found that people still choose to use maintenance funds when self-raised funds can save more than 50% of funds, but they tend to reduce the amount of maintenance funds used through multi-party inquiry. Now we give the conclusion. The fundamental problem of the use of maintenance funds is how to improve the use efficiency of maintenance funds. The general concern of the society is that it is difficult to vote on the use of maintenance funds, and the owners have nothing to with themselves, resulting in low willingness to vote, which is the reason for the low utilization rate of maintenance funds. When the personal account balance information is not actively disclosed, there are two statistical bases. Lowering the voting threshold will not necessarily improve the voting willingness, and the legislature generally reacts passively to the difficulty of voting. Adopting the policies that reduce the transaction cost of acquiring personal account information should correct the statistical basis and promote the real non-self to become self-related, reduce the cost of collective coordinated supply, and boost the efficiency of maintenance funds. The disadvantages of this paper are as follows. The implementation of intervention is difficult. The experiment time span is large, and the influence of the intervention effect may be unstable. That's all. Is there any questions?
Hello, there is a question. Could you please tell me about how you measure the utility in a questionnaire? Thank you.
Can you repeat it?
Oh, yes. I noticed that you mentioned you conduct a questionnaire in the real world and you measure the utility, right?
Yes.
So how do you do that?
We have designed a questionnaire, and we have one item to scale the satisfaction, and we use the Likert 5 items levels from 1 to 5, and the level is increasing, such as the 3 is the mean degree.
Okay, thank you. I see.
And is there any question?